Hi, friends. I wanted to give you my thoughts on grading, and this is distracting here. There, that's better. I'm so used to sitting here and looking at the screen over here because that's where my photo references are, and I've changed the camera here. It's messing me up. Grading and CGC and all that. This is a part of the hobby that you're not going to see me talk about too much. I am aware of CGC. I'm aware, so that's the certified grading company, but I've never used their services. So, first, I know there's a lot of people who follow my Substack and my YouTube channel who are not comic book collectors. They're not part of the hobby, they're just interested in my work. So, let me explain about uh, like the grading, what grading is, what CGC is, and all these terms. So comic books are magazines. Now I do have to look here, so as everybody knows, in America, this is the standard format for a comic book, right? It's a magazine printed on pretty cheap paper. It flops around like this and stapled in the center. The origin of this was basically printed on newsprint, which was the cheap option at the time. I think glossy paper is actually cheaper now. I'll get rid of that distraction again. What happened is that as these characters became more popular, uh, this is how I understand it. Like for instance, Superman, Batman, the Flash, Spider-Man, and all that. As the characters became more popular, the people wanted to go back and read the old stories, and so would hunt down the old comics. And because there were certain characters, certain stories that became more desirable, and the print run was over, that created a supply and demand economy for old comics. So there was a limited supply, demand was going up, and so there became came to be a market for back issues, right? Now, as the hobby developed, uh, there came to be a there came to be like a demand for better condition issues. So this is where we get into. So at the end of the day, this comic book could have no cover, and I could fold it, crumple it up in my hands, and I could still read the story inside, right? But it wouldn't look nice. So the idea is that people started to seek higher condition comics. So there came to be in a sense, an artificial limitation on supply because you could make an argument that higher condition comics, because comics at the time were kind of seen as disposable pieces of entertainment. They were rolled up and put in the pocket and thrown in somewhere, and you'd give them to someone else, and they'd get beat up, and the dog would lick them, and right. So it would. So you could say that there came to be within the demand of specific comics, there came to be a higher demand for comics that looked nice. But as the hobby got gained some traction, nerds being doing what nerds do, they started to want to codify the condition of a comic so that if you were ordering it from like mail order, if you said the comic was in fine condition, what did it mean? Fine condition for you can mean, well, I can read the story and see the pictures. fine condition for me can mean no wrinkles, right? So there came to be a codification. Now I'm sure there's like way more history into this, but basically there was a scale of like the comic looks like trash and the comic looks perfect, like it came off the press. So eventually that came to be called a number scale. That's a very, very brief overview of what all happened. Now, my opinion in all this is that the I understand the desire to have to kind of regulate sales through like a consensus grade scale. However, the thing that is really of value is the th- the thing that doesn't have an object is it's that happens in your imagination, right? So this one is an old comic. It has value because this one too, because a lot of people want it. But the only reason a lot of people want it is not because it doesn't really have anything to do with the object. There are thousands of this type of object. It has to do with this guy, this archetype, this story, this the craft of this artist and this writer, right? Frank Miller. So, and why this one in particular? Because it just looks cool. Well, you can't look something that you can't look at the, you know, the it's the thing that looks is the artistry. The thing that looks cool is not the book. It just happens to be on a book, right? So I appreciate that. I think some people get lost on the obsession. They kind of fetishize the object too much, whereas they're looking at every crease. Like now, if you look at this one close, this one, it looks perfect, right? Where you're at, it looks like an amazing book, doesn't it? I'm just make sure there's no glare. Yeah, looks beautiful. But if I look close, right? Okay, how many little white marks on here? And I open it up and I check, and it's you kind of lose the perspective, I find. Now there's outside companies. Yeah, so these things are stories that spark the imagination, and that's what's beautiful about them, and that's what makes them collectible. So the collectability is really like lower down the hierarchy of what makes these objects valuable, right? The number one reason why they're valuable is because they contain stories that enchant us and stimulate our imagination. Now, there are companies that emerged because what happened is that some people started kind of fudging the scale of condition. So they'd say fine condition, it was agreed upon, but there was a subjectivity to it, right? So there's a companies that came out that said, okay, we're a third party. You're going to give us the book, you'll pay us, and we'll give you an impartial judgment. Now, in theory, that sounds great. It sounds like a perfect solution to the market of collectible comic books. But if you look at the pricing scheme of certified grading company, for books that are valuable above a certain dollar amount, I think it's $1,000, they charge a commission or a commission percentage off of the perceived market value of the book, but their grade affects the market value. So they're incentivized to increase the grade, right? If they got a book that's worth $1,000 at a grade 7, but it's worth $2,000 at a grade 9, and they charge you a commission of, I don't know what it is, 10%, say, well, to add 2 points to the grading scale, they make an extra $100 on top of the cost of you paying them to grade the book. So it just doesn't seem, it's not impartial. They've taken the impartiality out of it. They're totally partial. They have to be. Now you can say they have good ethics and they have integrity and all that, but just that ambiguity means like I have no interest in sending books there. And again, it's not about the thing. It's not about the thing. It's about what the thing contains, right? The container. This is just a container. The the uh, the power is in what's in the container, right? I will say this though, the object somehow has a mysterious role to play in all of it because I like to display some comic books a little bit, and I had a discussion with my wife about framing them. And the idea was you could scan and print and put like a print of the image of that's on the comic and put that in a standard picture frame. But you can't really do that with the comic book because it's thicker, so that so there are special ways to display this. And it just highlighted for me that there's something about the it's not just the content in the container that matters, it's the combination. Because for some reason, printing out the image on a poster and just posting that doesn't feel the same. There's something less compelling about that. So there's something about this object that is singular. Whereas if you just scan and print, that's like a clone of many things. Whereas because this object has a specific history, has a specific wear pattern, meant certain things to certain people who owned it, many people read it. There's something, whether it's a psychological thing or like a metaphysical thing, there's something about the object. So I do get why people start obsessing about the condition of the object. And I own the Overstreet grading guide that teaches you how to look for the condition of a comic book. And there is something relaxing about just sitting there an evening with a light and some magnifying glasses and determining the grade of a book. And sometimes I do that and I write the grade on the back, but in this case I just put Frank Miller classic cover. And this one, I don't know, it's scratched out. So I do understand the appeal, but I find what happens is when the industry starts to tilt too much towards the speculator, okay, this is going to be a hot character, so I'm going to buy up a bunch of books and send them to CGC and I'll get 9.9 and then I'll sell them again on eBay at a premium. It becomes like a scheme. Like it's like disordered. Whereas the proper hierarchy of this is that the artwork, the artistry, the craft, the writing, the stories is all of everything in comics depends on that. And then when you're making the object and the condition of the object higher than the actual story, it's like you're flipping the whole thing around, and there's something wrong about that. And the industry creates these schemes where they do limited edition of this, that, they do foil covers and all that to kind of like suck people into this, fetishizing of the object thing. And you get a spike in sales here and there, but in the long run, because the stories are weak, people, it's bad for the industry. And in the 90s, we had a big industry crash because it was all built on this bad foundation of chasing collectors, and they had to claw their way out of that. It bankrupted Marvel Comics, if you can believe that. You'd think now Marvel's a multi-billion-dollar industry because of the movies and all that. A decade, like 18 years before that, or not even like 15 years before that, Marvel was bankrupt because of all these shenanigans with the collector market and all that. So I comment on comics on my YouTube channel. I know that here and there there's collectors that I'm sure that are paying attention, and that some of you are really into the CGC game. I figured I'd give my thoughts on that. Now, if that's your thing, yeah, all power to you. It's your money. But for me, I like looking through the dollar bin, and here's something I found in the dollar bin at a flea market. It has no resale value, right? But it looks beautiful, and it really inspired my artwork. It's some Japanese American reprint of a Japanese book. Look at this! Look at this tree. Isn't that a beautiful tree? Black and white comic. It's gorgeous. I paid, I think, it was 50 cents for it. Right? Does it have less value than this one? That's worth, I don't know. I didn't check. You can check on eBay. Daredevil, number 184. Tell me in the comments how much this book is worth. I'm gonna say it's probably like an 8 or 8.5 on the grading scale. Okay, that's it for my thoughts, my little ramble about CGC and collectors and all that. Do you collect comic books? I collect comic books because I like to go look at them again and use them for art reference and read them again. And display them and enjoy the joy that I get from them. I don't collect comic books because someday I'll be rich, and that's just ridiculous to me. Okay, thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.